My name is Louis Fawcett, and I serve as the president of the National Association of Nonprofit Organizations and Executives. And I want you to know that you are our heroes. You're on the front lines and you're passionate about your communities. You're passionate about changing and saving lives. And today we are going to talk about money, 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 because we know that in this world, money is the currency that we have been given to change and save lives. So please know that our heart behind raising money, our heart behind the nonprofit sector is just that, to invest in lives. And the way we do that is by raising more money. Please also know that we are not suggesting today, with the material we're going to pass on and the discussions that we have, we are not suggesting that you should work more. In fact, we want you to work less. We're not suggesting that you should make less money. In fact, we want you to make more money. So work less, make more money, change and save more lives. That is what NANOE is all about. And we know that all of you on this call are working more than you should be, 50, 60 hours a week. And we know that almost all of you, probably all of you, are paid less than you should be. So we are here to provide you with resources and to help you in this journey. I'm honored to be joined by three incredible United Way CEOs. George McCandless from United Way of Central Georgia, Debbie Bogle from Decatur, Illinois, United Way, and Jenny Lee, United Way of Rowan County, North Carolina.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Louis. And I echo, thank y'all for joining us. Like y'all, I've been at my United Way 12 years now. And basically when COVID hit, we saw a tremendous decline in our company campaigns. With one account alone, we've lost $1 million, which is almost a third of our company campaign revenue due to COVID. And so, we were sitting back, how do we make that up? And, as you know, United Ways, our superpower is we're a transactional fundraiser. We go into companies and run campaigns. And United Way worldwide has promoted for years that we need to grow our individual major donors and our Tocqueville members. But if you look at the people that are good at doing that, universities, hospitals, that's relational fundraising. And quite frankly, I didn't have that skill set, and my major gifts person did not have that skill set. So we were constantly frustrated that we could not move the needle on that. And I was introduced to Major Gifts Ramp Up, Jimmy LaRose, by another United Way CEO that had used them. And we brought them up. Jimmy came, spoke to my executive committee, and we decided to do the program. And we've had incredible success with it. In a little over a year, we have raised in two Ask events, right about $750,000. We've more than doubled our Alexis to Tocqueville Society, as well as adding a lot more leadership givers that were just below the Tocqueville level. And the main thing about it, though, for me and for my staff, as I say sometimes, it was like getting a degree in fundraising or relational fundraising, because the program and the skills that we learn, will carry with us. We'll just continue doing this going forward. But it gave us the knowledge and the comfort for doing it. I'll leave you with a quote for those of you that know who John Wooden, the famous basketball coach, was at UCLA. His quote was, when opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. And that's what, when we were having these meetings with people, we weren't prepared really to make the quality ask that we're now able to do after going through these programs.
Thanks, George. Debbie, what are your thoughts?
I echo what George said, and all the United Ways that are on here, we know we have the same story right now, most of us. So I won't go into that. We've been talking about it for several years now. But what I found with Major Gifts Ramp Up, not just with United Ways, but across the board with any organization. I know we have quite a few organizations on this webinar that are not United Way, but this gives us all a different way to tell our story. And I think that's important right now. When we're seeing time and time again, the companies are moving towards more cause-based rather than United Ways. And we're, as businesses, we're changing some of the things we do. And this is the perfect time for us to get out there and tell our story in a different way. It's not your grandfather's United Way anymore. And a lot of folks still think that, if they even know what United Way is. And so this gives donors a new reason to be excited about United Way, a new reason to invest in us, because we know we truly are one of the best organizations to create change in our communities. And so this just gives us that added layer to be able to express what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why people should be involved. It's not going into doing a campaign at a company. This is a much deeper relationship building format that is long lasting. And we've seen it across the board. I've worked with United Way. I've worked with other organizations in my community. I brought Major Gifts Ramp Up to 2 counties in Illinois for all of our organizations, because I feel it's so important for them to be able to utilize this type of fundraising in a different way. I don't even like to call it fundraising. It's relationship building. It is creating long-lasting friends and relationships that are just as passionate about United Way and nonprofit organizations as we are. And through this, we've been able to see such great success with the agencies that we work with, and see them shine in a different way and build their confidence to say, we can do this in a different way. It's not the same thing. So that's been my experience as a participant in helping others with this process. One of the things that I found, it really gives the donors that reason to want to be involved and to tailor their gift to something that they're very passionate about. We see time and time again through United Way that we do so many things. We reinvest in other things. We reinvest in ourselves as well. And sometimes it's hard for donors to really grasp that and grasp our outcomes and what we're really doing. And with this process, we can really drill down and understand and make that understandable to our communities. So I won't go on and on. We'll get to more into some of this a little bit later. But thank you, George, and thank you, Louis.
But Debbie, I have to ask you to tell the group, because I don't know anyone who is United Way through and through like Debbie Bogle. How long? It would tell everybody when you started with United Way.
So I became first involved when I was 17 at my first place of work as a part-time worker. I worked at a credit bureau, and every single person gave, and we just had a great time with it. And I have been a donor ever since then. So I've been a donor, I've been a volunteer, I ran campaigns in 3 different workplaces. I've been a board member, I worked at United Way, I left United Way, became a board member again, and then now I've been here for 10 years. So all in total, it's been 38 years of being involved in United Way. And I truly say all the time, it's not a job, I truly live United.
That's
and
wonderful.
We probably have several people like that as well.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Debbie, for being here. Jenny Lee in North Carolina, thank you for taking time with us today.
Good morning, everyone. First, thank you all for being here and listening to three very different stories of how Major Gifts Ramp Up has impacted our work in our local communities. I can speak for, I think, for George and Debbie, when we first started meeting about being able to do these presentations, we all had one common message, and that was Major Gifts Ramp Up has invested in our local United Ways, and we believe that as United Ways across the nation, we're all in this together. So why hoard this extraordinary philosophy of how we really engage with local donors, going beyond the workplace giving that we know is continuing to dwindle year after year after year. I would say, a newer United Way person. I actually came from the nonprofit agency side of applying for United Way dollars. So I came at this role with that sort of voice and lens. And then I've been with this organization going on 6 years now. And I always pick around and tell folks that I wish my board would have told me that the good old heydays of United Way were gone. And good luck, Jenny. Let's see how you can thrive in managing decline, because that's honestly what it felt like there at first. And so what brought us to Major Gifts Ramp Up, I have to give credit to our fearless philanthropy director for thinking outside of the box. It was ironic. I had a random mishap with some board members and some drama going on there. And all of a sudden this email comes through to my email, and it's from Jimmy LaRose. And it's like, do not trust your board members to do your fundraising, and said other bullets that just in that very moment for me spoke to me. And I thought, okay, I'm intrigued. So I sat in on the 2-day. I actually shut down our office, made my staff, all 5 of us, sit down and participate in the 2-day workshop. Then Audrey and I started meeting with Jimmy and Lewis, and Lewis was so great to come up to Rowan County here in North Carolina and present to our board of directors. And we're so lucky at our United Way because several of our board members that sit on our Economic Development Commission board had already gone through this forward-thinking process. So they were already like, let's do this. We recognize the model is not thriving anymore. Let's see what we can do. But then we also had some board members that thought, well, Jenny, we could just go and hire you another development person. And that would take up that budget expense, and they would be local, and you can develop that person. So that was one way we thought about it. But what really resonated for our board was, if anything, they were going to be able to invest in the current staff and leadership that we have here at Rowan County United Way, which is myself and our philanthropy director. And that in itself was worth every penny that we made into this investment. So I was very grateful for the board to be very forward thinking. And I very much look forward to later in this presentation being able to share some really tangible outcomes that are not just helping us in the yesterday when I sat down and met with a donor, but will continue to have residual impact on the work that we do, to the point where our efforts are now stabilizing our United Way for 25 plus years. So I look forward to sharing some of these best practices with you all. And again, thank you for the work that you do in your local communities. We all can recognize it's hard. We can feel defeated, but hopefully after this presentation, you all will see some glimmer of hope, and that we want to share this wonderful education and best practices with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Okay, so let me give you our roadmap for today. First of all, as I said earlier, but I want to emphasize, we don't want today to be the only conversation that we have with you. We want today to be the start of a long-standing conversation, a long-standing relationship with your local United Way, with your organization. And So part of the way that we want to take a next step with you is to invite you to a 2-day conference, either an in-person experience or a virtual conference. And we're going to be sharing with you later how to receive that invitation and learn about how to attend that 2-day conference. And we'll even share with you how to get a scholarship so you can bring your entire team, bring your board, bring whomever you wish. I'm going to give a brief overview of the Major Gifts Ramp Up model, and then George and Debbie and Jenny are going to talk about how they've seen the Major Gifts Ramp Up model work in very different ways in very different communities. And then we'll transition to questions, answers, discussion for as long as you all see fit. Now, of course, you're welcome to jump in with a question anytime. I'm not able to monitor the chat very well while I'm talking, so feel free to unmute yourself, show us your smiling face, jump in, interrupt me, and ask a question. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me this won't work where you are. Whatever you want to say, whatever's on your mind, I promise you someone else is thinking it as well. So please don't hold back. So that's where we're headed today, and let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen, and you will see the Major Gifts Ramp Up model. You can also find this model at majorgiftsrampup.com. We also have a YouTube channel, if Major Gifts Ramp Up YouTube, if you want to watch other informative videos or testimonies about other people who have used this model. So the Major Gifts Ramp Up model has been used for 34 years in all 50 states and the United Kingdom. It is a model that works in every community because it is based on normative human relationships. We've deployed the model successfully in New York City and Seattle and Miami and Los Angeles. We've also deployed it in places like Tupelo, Mississippi and Brooks County, Georgia, and other rural areas in the Midwest. Everywhere we have seen this model work. And one of the reasons the Major Gifts Ramp Up model works in every community is because it's a model, not a prescription. There are certain key elements that we deploy, but we always custom fit the model to your situation. And we adjust it. We may emphasize certain parts. We may leave other parts out. We may even bring in new resources that we haven't talked about before, because we want to make sure that we're maximizing the lives that you're changing and saving in your community. And you're going to see that later on when George talks about his case for support. He applied the model in one way. In his context, Jenny applied the model in a different way in her context, and Debbie has applied the model in different ways in the communities in which she has worked. So as you can see on your screen, we teach the model in 13 chapters, and it is divided into 3 6-month phases. So the total process is 18 months. And during these 18 months, you secure 3 to 5 years worth of commitments for your United Way. The goal of the Major Gifts Ramp Up model is not just to help you raise one pot of money. It is not about having a capital campaign. Rather, it is about making the transition to being donor-centric, to have a comprehensive campaign, and to install a permanent culture of philanthropy within your organization so that you are always investing deeply in the lives of your donors. So let's get started with Chapter 1, Management Philosophy. It is simply this. Most organizations, most United Ways spend 95 to 99% of their time on running the organization, on program service delivery, on managing staff, on managing workplace giving campaigns. And we tend to treat donors as ATM machines. We go to them once a year when we want them to pay their Tocqueville gift. We go to them once a year during the workplace giving kickoff, and we want them to fill out the form. We go to them once a year at the for end of the year giving, or maybe at our annual gala. But we found over and over again that especially for smaller organizations, they aren't sowing deeply into the lives of donors. And so right off in Chapter 1, we invite you to begin to think about your donors as your customers, because they are the ones paying the bills. And if you look at any successful business, you will see that these businesses are constantly investing in the lives of their customers. They're constantly asking the question, how can we serve our customers? Because we know if we serve their needs, if we help our customers achieve their goals, then they will come back to us over and over and over again to enjoy our products and services. And so we invite you to have the same mentality with your donors. How can you invest in their lives? How can you serve their needs? How can you help them accomplish their goals for your communities? Because when they feel like you've listened to them, when they feel like you've helped them, when they feel like their money is invested and has an impact that is immediately apparent, then they will come back over and over again and continue to fund your organization. So the first shift early on in this process is to include donors as part of your mission and to look at them as your customers. Now, we do this through major gift fundraising, which means we need to concentrate on our top customers, on our top givers, because most of you are in smaller organizations, and it is very difficult. It is impossible, in fact, for you to invest deeply in thousands of lives or even in hundreds of lives, but you certainly can narrow the focus down to your top 100 and spend time every year, 2 or 3 times a year, with people who are in your top 100. So whether your top 100 starts at $5,000 annually, or maybe your top 100 starts at $10,000 annually, that Alexis de Tocqueville level, we want to help you focus in on that top 100. Major Gifts fundraising is the easiest way to raise the most amount of money in the least amount of time. So there's so much work that goes into all the other ways to raise money: the golf tournament, the glow run, the mud run, the corporate giving campaign. I'm sure you have board members who come up with all kinds of ideas of get rich quick schemes. Well, if we could just have a better social media platform, if we could have a viral video, an ice bucket challenge, if we could get Oprah involved or Bill Gates, I'm sure they'd love to give to our organization. None of those ideas work. We're inviting you to narrow your scope and to spend your time on your top 100 donors. And so you can look at the Major Gifts Ramp Up model in this triangle fashion in which we teach it, but you can flip it upside down and view it as a funnel, because we're going to show you how to begin with roughly 2,500 millionaires and community influencers, and then funnel down to your top 100. Now, before we can begin to do major gift fundraising, we have to do organizational development. And organizational development is not strategic planning. Strategic planning is when you have a board retreat in a cabin on a hill over a weekend, and you get flip charts and post-it notes and highlighters and Sharpies, and everyone brainstorms and refines the mission statement, and then talks about all the ways that you can change your community, your state, or your world. And everyone comes out of that retreat feeling great about it, except you don't feel great about it, because you know that ideas have been put on the table that you don't have the staff or the funding or the expertise to execute. But because some board member felt like she had to say something at the retreat, now all of a sudden you have a new part to your mission that goes in the strategic plan. And then coming out of the retreat, someone takes flow charts, spreadsheets, org charts, narratives, puts everything in the notebook. Everybody gets a copy of the notebook, and on the spine of the notebook, it says strategic plan, and the notebook goes on the shelf. And then a year later, no one knows what's in the notebook. So when we talk about organizational development, we are not talking about having a strategic plan. We're talking about having a real-time battle plan to assess where you are today and where you want to be in 3 years. And this plan starts with the CEO or executive director. It starts with the leadership. It is not done in retreat. It is done with the top leaders of the organization who understand day to day what it takes to run your organization, and also day to day the needs of your community. When you go through this process of organizational development, you are going to refine who you are, what you do, how you do it, how much it costs, and then how many people are impacted and in what ways they're impacted by your work. Those are the 5 key pieces of organizational development. Who are you? What do you do? How do you do it? How much does it cost? And how many people does it impact, and in which ways? Now, once you've gone through that process, then you're able to represent that organizational development in a case for support. Now, a case for support is typically an 8, 10, or 8 or 12-page document that reflects the work you've done in organizational development. And I'll just let you know that putting together a case for support is a refining fire. It forces you to get very clear about your mission, to get very clear about the people that are needed to accomplish your mission, and then to get very clear about how much it costs and how many people are impacted. And you may find as you go through this process and you develop a case for support that you're not all on the same page. You may find that you have staff members who think, well, we ought to be doing this thing, and other staff members who say we ought to be doing that thing. Or you may have board members even who are having questions about what is the best way to accomplish your mission. And so it is a refining fire. It is an important process, because once you produce this case for support, then everyone is on the same page about your organization. Once you develop a draft of case for support, you're then going to test that with early leaders in your campaign. So we're not taking it to market thinking that we have all the answers. We are going to put together a case for support and then test that with community leaders, with philanthropists, with major donors, so that we can make sure we've hit all the right notes, so that we know that we've addressed the concerns, and that we have a case for support that is compelling and is going to resonate with major donors in your communities. Now, later on, I'm going to share with you a case for support from United Way of Central Georgia, from Rowan County United Way. But I thought I would share with you the case for support right now from United Way of the Quad Cities. So the Quad Cities sit on the border of Illinois and Iowa. This is where the John Deere headquarters is located. And so their visionary leadership decided that now was the time to enter into a process to raise $5.7 million to address 3 huge needs in their community. Number one, making sure that children are ready to enter kindergarten and on a path to read. Because we know if kids don't read by the end of the 3rd grade, then 99% of them will never learn to read. So that's a key factor they identified. Number two, that kids graduate high school. We know all the numbers about kids who don't graduate versus kids who do graduate high school. And so they identified that as an area of emphasis. And then number 3, emerging leaders. They wanted to intentionally sow into young professionals in their community to keep them active and involved in the Quad Cities area. So this is their case for support, the Call to Rise United. They start off by making this clear statement, creating a Quad Cities where no one sits on the sidelines. And so they begin to describe their communities and also give some of the numbers. And then they had this wonderful, wonderful quote by their campaign chair. 5 years ago, we weren't ready to launch this campaign, but 5 years from now will be too late. We have the right leadership and the right vision. The time to act is now. Okay, so then they identified very clearly their 3 priorities, which I just told you about. Making sure kids can enter kindergarten on a path to read, making sure that all students graduate high school, and then working with emerging leaders, young professionals in their community, and see how they color-coded it, blue, yellow, orange, to make it clear as a path through this document. Then they went into detail about each initiative. Bold goal number 1, they laid out the challenge and then the solutions and then why it matters. Very detailed. And look at the bottom, 1.89 million needed to move the needle for this initiative. Then bold goal number 2, all students graduate from high school prepared for a prosperous future. Again, what is the need? What is the challenge? What are the solutions? Why does it matter? And what is the cost? 2.23 million. And then number 3, again, color-coded, empower all emerging leaders for lives of wise leadership, the challenge, the solutions, why it matters, 1.62 million needed for this initiative. And then they were able to provide a summary page that shows over 3 years how they are going to raise the $5.7 million needed to accomplish these 3 bold goals. Then they laid out their gift range chart right there in their case for support, the giving levels, because they know that they're going to need a gift at $1.5 million, 2 gifts at $2 million, 4 gifts at $500,000, and on down the line in order to accomplish this mission. And then they had a wonderful host committee, a wonderful board of directors, and an education council that they listed on the back of their case for support. All right, so they developed this wonderful case, and they developed it in the context of an 18-month advancement calendar. So I had the opportunity to visit with the team, and we laid out 18 months worth of work. So as you go into this process, we invite you to meet in your conference room with 6 90-day dry erase calendars, and you date those 6 90-day dry erase calendars for 18 months, and you put on the wall everything to which you are already committed. Then you put on the wall all the tasks of Major Gifts Ramp Up. When are we going to have an awareness event? When are we going to have an ask event? When are we going to cultivate donors? What is our deadline for case for support? Hundreds of tasks end up going on the calendar. And this day of looking at the calendar forces you to wrestle with what's really important, because we want you to monetize every hour of your time. And you may look at the calendar and you see that golf tournament that's looming in the fall, and you think, oh my Lord, I don't know how we're going to get anything done for 3 months because we got to do the golf tournament because, you know, sweet Bob's been helping with the golf tournament. Bob loves the golf tournament. And then someone says, well, how much did we make off the golf tournament last year? And you know, you hear the papers shuffling, and then the CFO says, well, about 22,000. And then there's silence. Because you all know that you spent all this time on the golf tournament or on whatever fundraiser it was, the silent auction, the glow run, whatever. And Bob was happy and everybody felt good, but you didn't really raise any money. And so the return on investment is not there. And so it's time to sunset that golf tournament or that event that everyone may know and love, but it simply doesn't make sense to keep it going because you're not monetizing that. Now, it may be that you can repurpose that event. Again, the reason for wrestling with the advancement calendar, but the very act of looking at 18 months worth of work is going to help you prioritize what's really important. Once you have laid out everything for 18 months, you then take all of that down off the wall and put it into a flowing work document, a Word document, and you have month by month everything that needs to be accomplished for 18 months. This is your roadmap to success. March, all the tasks for March. April, everything for April. May, June, July, all the way out. You have soft deadlines, you have hard deadlines, and this keeps you on track throughout your campaign. Now, let me share with you 2 benefits of the advancement calendar. Number one, the advancement calendar is a set of goals that you have set for yourselves, and you are able internally to hold each other accountable for these goals, these deadlines that you've all agreed upon. But number 2, when someone comes up with a crazy idea, maybe it's a board member, maybe it's a staff member, maybe it's a volunteer who at some point comes to you and says, you know, we really need to be working on this issue. We really need to be addressing this thing in our community. You're able to say, you know what, you're right, and that's wonderful, but we've first agreed on this 18 months worth of work, and so we can address that issue down the line. But first, we're going to focus on what we've all agreed upon together. So it provides you a convenient way to deflect the ideas that invariably are going to come your way that really don't fit in with your mission. Okay. Also, while we're developing case for support, while we're working on this advancement calendar and focusing on major gifts, we're going to develop a list of 2,500 prospects. So 2,500 families and corporations who are prospective donors to your organization. And this prospect list is divided into 3 categories. List number 1, your existing donors. We want to understand your existing wealth set. And so if you have a set of existing donors, we want to upload those donors and do wealth screening so that we can understand who has the potential to become a Tocqueville member, who has the potential to give $100,000 annually. Because I promise you, all of you have donors who are giving maybe $100 a year, $1,000 a year, $5,000 a year, and they could be giving much more if they're properly cultivated. So we're going to wealth screen that list. And I'll just let you know that very typically we find 15 to 20% of your existing donors could be giving 10 times what they're giving now. So that's list number 1. List number 2 is your community file, making up a list of roughly 250 to 300 community influencers and philanthropists. These are people who are already sitting on the boards of other organizations or who are already giving to other organizations. So it takes some work. It is a bit tedious, but you simply go to different organizational websites, Habitat for Humanity, Boys and Girls Club, the Community Foundation. the technical college, the university, the hospital foundation, and there you will find the names and often titles of board members who are serving in other capacities. And if you're really lucky, you'll find their annual report, because a lot of organizations post an annual report to their websites. I recommend that none of you do this, because once you post your annual report, many organizations also recognize their donors at certain levels. Well, this is wonderful material for you to mine, because you can open up an annual report and see who gave at the $100,000 level, who gave to the capital campaign, who gave to the $25,000 level, who gave at $10,000 and above. And then, of course, you want to import all of those names and find those addresses to add as the second part of your prospect list. And then the third part of your prospect list is going to be comprised of the other millionaires who are in your community whom you've not yet met. Now, the way we find those donors is a tool that we developed called DonorScope. DonorScope interfaces with Experian so that we can download the names and addresses of all the millionaires in your community within the radius of a certain zip code. So you should now be able to see DonorScope on your screen. DonorScope is housed at NANOE. Christy, 24401. Christy Williams, where's 24401? That sounds like South Carolina. Where's that?
It is Stanton, Virginia, Central Virginia.
Oh, Stanton.
Yes.
Okay. 24401. Christy, I'm from Farmville, Virginia, so not that far.
Okay, yeah.
So, Christy, how many millionaires do you think live within 15 miles of 24401?
Honestly, I have no idea. I don't think it's very many, but I'm hoping that I'm surprised.
Take a guess. Just give me a number, just for fun.
Oh, goodness. 200.
Okay, so within 15 miles of 24401, Stanton, Virginia, there are 9,067. Can you see that number, Christy?
Wow, yes.
9,067 net worth millionaires within 15 miles of you. Now, if we narrow that, we can also put in liquid assets, income producing assets at $1 million or higher. And we'll just say within 10 miles of you, because certainly you can get to anyone within 10 miles of you. A perfect number. You have 2,000 households, Christy, within 10 miles of you who have income producing assets, liquid assets of $1 million or more, and have net worth of $1 million or more.
Wow.
These are the 2,000 households that you want to invite to be a part of your organization. Tell us about your organization.
So we are the United Way of Stanton, Augusta County, and Waynesboro. So I carry 3 areas. And we are struggling big time right now. Our revenue has dropped 50% since the pandemic. And our grants are state grants are being pulled to larger United Ways. And it's a very difficult time.
Well, Christy, first of all, thank you for your work. Thank you for your perseverance and your commitment to your community. I want to share with you the good news that for $380 plus a little tax, so let's just say $400, you can download those 2001 households who are millionaires within your community. 0102. And Alexis, where do you live?
Chicagoland area.
Oh, goodness.
Suburbs.
What suburb?
Algonquin, far northwest suburb.
All right, so because you're in Chicagoland, we know there's significant wealth there. How many millionaires would you guess have liquid assets of 6 million or higher, or net worth of 6 million or higher within 10 miles of you?
Maybe 10. Maybe 10, 20. If that.
6,864.
Wow, that's huge.
So with that, and that's just within 10 miles of you. So even if I narrow that to 10 million, we certainly know that anyone who has liquid assets of 10 million or greater and net worth of 10 million or greater can absolutely become a Tocqueville member.
I've worked for United Way funded agencies for over 30 years. So I've worked with United Way for a lot of years indirectly.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Wonderful. Well, 5,500 households within 10 miles of you, liquid assets of 10 million and greater, and net worth of 10 million and higher. So a lot of wealth capacity in your area. Yeah, go ahead, Debbie.
54494, and that was Central Wisconsin. Tari Johns, I think I said that right.
It's Terry. That's close.
Terry,
You're good.
okay.
Okay, Terry, 54494. Do I have that right?
Correct.
And tell me where you are in Wisconsin.
Right in the center of the state, so very rural.
And what's the closest metropolitan area to you?
Probably Madison, and that's about 2 hours south.
All right. Well, Terry, I think I have some good news for you. 7,500 millionaires, Terry,
Wow.
within a 20-mile radius. And so if I just boil that down to 10 miles, 2,459 households that have a net worth of $1 million or higher just within 10 miles of you.
Awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure. So I just want to encourage you that there is significant wealth in all of your communities. Okay, now we have put together with our prospect list of roughly 2,500 millionaires and community influencers, and we're going to invite all of those folks to a non-fundraising awareness event. This is going to be a business luncheon on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday from 11:30 to 1. You're going to have a tight timed agenda. And this is the first time where you roll out your case for support to the community. Now, you may do this in the context of having a special speaker that everyone wants to hear, or you may claim an award category like the Central Wisconsin Humanitarian Awards or the Southwest Nevada Gathering of Heroes. You put together a compelling invitation, and you're very clear on the invitation that this is a non-fundraising awareness event, and you're going to send it to all of those 2,500 millionaires and community influencers, and they self-qualify the interest in your organization by showing up for this luncheon. Usually, you have around 200 people at your non-fundraising awareness event, and you're going to take them to the mountaintop for your community and for the impact of your organization for the people that you're serving. Then precisely at 12:58, they leave the room and you say to them, if you've learned today that our organization can be a part of helping you achieve your goals for this community, then we look forward to visiting with you personally. And then we go into Chapter 8, Prospect Cultivation, and this is where we spend 6 months meeting one-on-one with everyone who attended the non-fundraising awareness event or everyone who wanted to attend but was unable to for whatever reason. And these are listening sessions. These are opportunities to listen to your community members, your millionaires, your philanthropists, so that you can learn about them and about their desire to change and save lives in your community. And then through reviewing case for support with grace and propriety, you can then invite them to invest significantly in your organization. We're not looking for donations. We're looking for investments in the community. And through investing in your organizations, lives will be changed and saved. So this is a 6-month process, one little chapter, but it's 6 months of work to meet with all of these people one-on-one, coffee, lunch, cocktails, office meeting, tour of your organization. this is where you really see the money start to come in. This is where you really learn about the wealth set in your community. Now we come to the 1 year mark. And at the 1 year mark, you're going to have an evening event. Now, this is a table hosted event where you're going to recruit 25 table hosts, and these 25 table hosts are going to fill their tables of 8, and you're going to have roughly 200 people in the room. Except with this invitation, you've been very clear that an opportunity to support your United Way or your organization will be provided. So in the first invitation, at the 6-month mark, the non-fundraising awareness event, very clear, this is not a fundraising event. This invitation, very clear in the other way, an opportunity to support the organization will be provided. And every table host knows that there's going to be an ask. So we gather for the evening. Once again, we take people to the mountaintop for the impact of your organization. And then we have everyone fill out a commitment form. And we take them through a very scientific process of filling out this commitment form. And we share with them the good news that we're going to do a live tally. Don't worry, we're not going to call out any names, but we are going to call out all the amounts of gifts that have been committed tonight. And what's wonderful is everyone fills out the card. They fold it over, they hold it up. We collect the cards. We have volunteers with baskets. We collect the cards. We bring all of the cards up. We read all the numbers. Don't worry, we're not going to call out any names. We read all the numbers, and we are able then to share the good news of how much money we've raised just in one night. Typically, we raise $400,000 to $600,000 in this evening. Then we go into closing out the campaign. We seat a campaign cabinet. The campaign cabinet is made up of 15 individuals. These 15 individuals agree to take responsibility for 6 relationships. We meet with the cabinet. We give them a prospect list. They're welcome to add to that prospect list, but they each are going to choose 6 relationships to steward to help us close out this campaign. We know that if 15 people take responsibility for at least 6 relationships, then that's going to get us into 90 to 100 campaign interviews. Once again, these are listening sessions. We're learning about the donors. We're learning about their passions. We're reviewing case for support with them. But this time, we're going to take along a written 3-part ask. And this written 3-part ask is broken down into 3 sections. We're going to ask the donor to commit a multi-year gift to programs or operations. So maybe they became a Tocqueville donor at the evening event. We're going to invite them to commit to being a Tocqueville donor for at least the next 3 years. Then we're going to invite them to give a one-time stretch gift to a capital project. Maybe you need to renovate your facility. Maybe you need a new facility. Maybe you need a fleet of vehicles to deploy your mission. But we're going to have a one-time project and ask them to give a stretch gift. There may be naming rights associated with that. And then the third part of the 3-part ask, we're going to invite them to consider your organization in their estate plans and to make an endowment commitment. You need to build an endowment for your organization for the long-term viability of your impact. In the same way that you have a retirement plan so that you don't have to work forever, we invite nonprofits to start an endowment so that they can always be open and always serving the community, no matter what comes their way. We know if we carry out 90 to 100 3-part asks, then we will get 50 to 60 yeses. And it's those 50 to 60 yeses that lead us to campaign success. George, I thought you might want to talk about the success of your non-fundraising awareness event with Angela Williams, your Ask event with Lucille O'Neill. Why don't you chat with the group about that? You may even have some things you want to share.
Our first awareness event, you can see the pictures there. Angela Williams, our United Way worldwide CEO, was our guest speaker. She came down to talk about that. And then we have now had 2 Ask events. Lewis mentioned the first year our speaker was Lucille O'Neill. If you're not familiar with who Lucille is, I'll bet you know who her son is, Shaquille O'Neal. And she did a great job talking about, you know, how she grew up as a single mom and relied on the services of United Way. And then just a few months ago, we had over on the right, the former quarterback, Joe Theismann, was a speaker, and he was incredibly good and dynamic speaker, and obviously had a big name that helped draw folks in. And as Lewis said, the first year we raised a little over 400,000 and had 2 $100,000 gifts that night, which were the largest individual gifts our United Way had ever received. And then this past year, we raised just under 400,000 for the Theismann event. So that's again in 2 years about 750,000. So Lewis showed you the case for support from the United Way in Iowa, our Keystone campaign. So ours opened up a letter from me, a page about, since it was our 100th anniversary, we gave a brief history of when our United Way was started in the community. Then this is a map. We serve 15 counties in the central Georgia area so that people knew what areas we serve. This gentleman on the right, Chris Sheridan, he actually started our Tocqueville Society about 25 years ago. And, you know, he's a local high wealth individual, that big believer in United Way. So he wrote this letter about how impactful, not only did he think United Way was, but he spoke at one of our events and did an incredible, you know, heart-touching story about why he gives and why he believes others should. Again, for 100 years, we went and did a timeline. We put ours all on a couple of facing pages that go back to when our United Way was started. And so it intersperses our history as well as the history of our community, and both subliminally as well as outwardly, it just shows how woven or interwoven our history is with the community here. And then we get into our focused areas. For our United Way friends, one thing that I learned from this case for support, and especially I found the more individual donors that I speak with, the traditional United Way model of giving to an organization that then takes it and amalgamates it all and then disperses it out to other, you know, a group of program partners or whatever, that seems to resonate less and less with these individual donors. They're interested in, it seems, making an impact in some area that is close to their heart. You know, for example, they're willing to make a $10,000 donation to the food bank because they know it's helping get food to somebody, or they're going to give $10,000 to the Boys and Girls Club to do an after school program. What this case for support does, and the process that it made us go through, is let's not tell that generic United Way story. What are the key things that we are focused on that we think will resonate with people? So the first one, this past year, our state became the 29th state to adopt the ALICE framework. So we redid our case for support, which is another good point here. The first case for support we did a little over a year and a half ago, we weren't an ALICE state. So we talked about another program we had, but we went and updated it because we're moving our strategic focus around ALICE. So we talked about what ALICE is and gave some data points there. Then the second program that we were promoting is our Birth Through 8 initiatives. The two gentlemen there are the superintendents from our two major school districts and talking about how impactful our work there is. And it goes into the detail of what we're doing. And then our third big initiative, the gentleman there up at the top is the mayor of Macon. He reached out to us a few years ago and gave us a $4 million grant to take over a homeless center that he had started. And we've now developed that into a resource center for folks that are transitionally homeless. And he talks about how impactful that partnership was. And then we go in and talk about the folks that we have helped and give those statistics. And then as with the earlier one, we get down into the budget, probably make this a little bigger, don't want to get too big. So we get down into the budget for each of those programs. The budget includes, as you can, if you can read, the planned giving fund to try and grow our endowment. Again, going back to the three-part ask that Lewis mentioned. And then over on the right is just a very capsule description of each one of those programs. The good thing, the way this program works with the case for support, you don't put it on your website. You don't pass it out to 15,000 people at company campaign presentations. It's only given out at the awareness event, at the ask event, or one-on-one when you're meeting with donors. It's a very customizable document, and it's one that you don't have to invest a ton of money printing thousands of copies at one time. And just to wrap up, to go back to what I was saying earlier, I remember when I was growing up, going back to the John Wooden Code and in athletics, and our coach always used to make us practice way more than we thought that we needed to. But yeah, his point was, as human beings, we tend to avoid tasks that we don't feel confident about. And I'll be totally upfront. 3 years ago, I was not totally confident about going out and meeting one-on-one with these individual, especially high wealth donors, not only not having the experience and the skill set to do that, but not knowing exactly how to sell the United Way story. And my major gifts folks were the same way. And as a result, we were having a lot of what I would call awareness type discussions. We were having very few ask type discussions. And by doing the Major Gifts Ramp Up program, not only has it given us the confidence and the knowledge of how we have these discussions, but combining it, with this targeted case or support, we're having a whole lot different conversations with these individual donors and being able to find out from them what resonates the most specifically in these different areas and be able to help target their support to us. And again, it's relational fundraising. We have now relationships with each one of these folks. And we have a schedule on how often we reach out to them. Whether, on Valentine's Day last year, we sent all of our major donors Valentines that the children in our Read United program made for them. Or we'll invite them to a luncheon to give them an update on the ALICE initiative so that they feel like a little inside baseball, that they know more about what's going on with United Way than the average person. So all those are things that we have learned through this process of working with Major Gifts Ramp Up.
Thank you, George. Jenny Lee, are you, there you are. Always good to see you, Jenny. So here's what's interesting to me. George applied Major Gifts Ramp Up in his context, and it was very program focused. He didn't need to raise money for a building or for a capital project. You, on the other hand, have launched the hub in Rowan County, and I'd love for you to talk to the group about the hub and about your capital project.
I am going to start with my case for support, and then we're going to take that and lead it into the capital campaign, because the case for support really does help in covering that three-part ask that Major Gift Ramp Ups really embeds into the philanthropy philosophy within an organization. But we're going to go through mine rather quickly. A lot of the same concepts as what George just mentioned. I mean, it is a great laid out plan for your case for support. Lewis brought up strategic planning earlier, and I am not a fan of strategic planning. I believe that you spend so much time in this space for it to become a paperweight. And I feel like that is, number one, not generating revenue, and it's not generating value. But when Lewis brought the concept of case for support to our organization, we kind of flipped it and said, well, yeah, we can use this as our marketing fundraising tool, but this also, in a sense, is our strategic plan, because we're covering goals for the next 3 years, and it's a living document. So we, as a staff and donors and board members, actually evaluate and use this case for support far more than any strategic plan that I've ever used in the past. And I've been on both ends of that. I've facilitated strategic planning, and I've been a part of it. All great stuff, but at the end of the day, what do we do with it? And how many times do we actually reflect back on that? So, again, you go through, you have a letter from your CEO. You know, one thing that I've really realized with Rowan County United Way, or any United Way, I'll go into a room and I'll say, okay, folks, raise your hand if you've ever heard of United Way. Just about 100% will raise their hand. Next question is, now, can you all tell me what your United Way does in your community? You're lucky to get 40% of the hands raised. So this document is a way for us to share our story, going beyond just being a flow-through organization, because that is not what we are. We do not take in the money anymore and then allocate it out to member agencies. It's a completely different process. Plus, we have direct programming now, which is something that we didn't do. And I love that Debbie used the slogan, we're no longer your grandfather's United Way. We use that here at Rowan County as well, because it's so true. It's very different from you having a board made up of plant managers and bank chairmen, et cetera. We've started to bring in, making sure we have folks that are more from DSS or public health or the hospital, so that we're all speaking the same language, and we truly are embedded in the work and the spaces of those that we serve. So our board more adequately reflects those that we serve in our community. So we go through and we talk about the different initiatives of United Way, just to make sure that folks understand it's not just a flow through organization. Of course, one of the things that all United Ways are very good at are testimonials and sharing success stories. So we highlight that of really great successes, and we have diverse folks in here. Some are agency leaders and some are service recipients. So we go through that, and then we start to talk about the shift. I think even the public in our community can say, well, we see our campaign goal going down year after year after year, and we struggle. I literally stood on a water tower for a campaign stunt to try to raise more money, terrified of heights, but we do it for the greater good of those that we want to serve. But the most important part is the 3-part ask. And this is what Major Gifts Ramp Up helps you do. It not only helps us to dive deep into the history, the rich history of a United Way and our particular United Way, but it allowed me to dream. And that was really pivotal because we're coming out of survival mode of a global pandemic. And finally, I can sit down with my leadership and I can dream. And for us, we have moved our office several times, and it takes up money, it takes up time, it takes up resources, it confuses our clients. It was just not a good practice. So as we're working with Lewis and our staff, we're thinking, okay, well, we're United Way. If we're having this problem, surely we're not the only nonprofit having this issue. So we started going out and surveying all nonprofits. And we're talking about the arts, we're talking about animals, environmental, of course, health and human services. And we're trying to figure out what are your spatial needs and are you feeling the same issues that we are feeling, where you have to pack up to go to a board meeting or you have to pack up and rent a space to go facilitate a training for like a parent university. And so we found that out of roughly 97 nonprofits in Rowan County, 53% of those folks needed better, adequate space for their office needs. Now, some of them are going to be very diverse in size, where some folks may need 3,000 square feet, and some may say, I just need one satellite office, and that's it. I need to be able to compartmentalize my life. I don't want to work at home because I have children or family at home. I want to be able to come to an office. So as we start to develop this, that is when this vision of the hub, a center for collaboration, started to become or move from a vision to fruition. We sat down and Lewis helped to facilitate these. And then, of course, Audrey, my philanthropy director, and I just started running with it once we got comfortable. We sat down with leaders from chamber. We sat down with our top donors. We sat down with different board members, different stakeholders, and had them read this case for support. That was pivotal because it holds so much more value than a strategic plan, because the community's buy-in and voice was reflected in this case for support. We changed it over and over and over again until we could capture something that we all felt good about and putting out into the public. And so, as United Ways, we already organically bring together different sectors. That is our unique ability in any community. And that's something we should all celebrate. So essentially, the hub is just a natural part of our evolution of how do we stabilize our United Way for the now and for the future. Because one day when I get to retire and move to some tropical island, I want to know that Rowan County United Way is so far better than how I found it. That should be any of our goals. And so with this idea and concept of the hub, we will bring in diverse nonprofits and we will create a shared workspace. We're going to share internet, telephones, boardrooms, a shared receptionist, training rooms, janitorial services. And there's so many goals and outcomes of this initiative, but the overarching goal is that financially, this will reduce the overhead expenses of our Rowan County United Way, but it will also reduce the overhead expenses of those that come and rent space at the hub, because we're sharing our resources, as opposed to 10 different nonprofits having 10 different receptionists, having 10 different contracts with copiers and janitors and internet services. We're all sharing in those resources, which our donors love that. And especially if you are a business-minded person, which a lot of our donors are, you show up with the pro formas and the numbers are there. It is a solid business plan where we can simply say, we're reducing overheads. That means more of your money will go to programs and services. Now, one thing that Lewis, as you work with Lewis and Jimmy and their team, they will tell you what we all feel, but we don't get to say it out loud that much. And that is nonprofit staff should get paid, and they should get paid well. We're still running a business. We deserve benefits. We deserve vacation time. You know, we deserve anything that you would find in corporate America. But to donors, we still have to combat the mentality of, well, we don't want too much overhead. In fact, if we're hitting 20-25% of overhead, we're getting uncomfortable. So this is a way for us to sell our ability to go out and reduce overhead costs. It also helps us to keep a good pulse on nonprofits to make sure that we are avoiding duplication in services. I had a lady come up to me at a recent nonprofit workshop that Lewis facilitated for our community, and she said, I'm really starting to feel like Rowan County needs to have a push in human trafficking. And I just looked at her and I said, well, no, we don't. We have a group that's doing that and has been doing it for well over 2 years now, but I'm happy to connect you. So it's that high level of connectivity. The second part of our ask is you all are very familiar with Community Chest Fund. That is what we're using as our endowment. We know as we go into owning a building, things are going to happen. And things will age. We're going to need elevators. We're going to need HVAC, electrical, roof repairs, things of that nature as the wear and tear of the building takes on by having more and more tenants there. And then, of course, the third piece is bridging that gap that's been created in workplace giving. And that's what you all have heard a lot from George and Lewis today about. Yes, we're not going to walk away from workplace giving ever, but we also have to acknowledge it's not quite our bread and butter as it used to be, and creating these really organic and fruitful relationships with donors and not being a one-side transactional organization, which our United Way very much was. We were treating, I'm going to use Lewis's quote, our donors as ATMs. And once he said that to our staff, it was just like, oh my gosh, shame on us. And it didn't feel good. But with this process, it completely changes our internal philosophy about how we work with major donors and help them to understand the importance of United Way. So I want to go ahead and share with you guys a little bit more about the hub before I turn it over to Debbie. So this building is actually in the historic part of downtown Salisbury. And I'm not sure if you all know anything about Salisbury, but we are the home of Food Lion and Cheerwine. We have a very rich culture here. And this building actually is owned by a really wealthy family, the A Striker, and has a rich history to it. It is roughly 24,000 square feet with only about 3,000 of the square footage being used right now by a tenant. And so we have a very generous donor who is going to help us obtain this building at a very lower rate. So that in itself is a huge gift. And you'll see here, we have some concept renderings that when we go out and host these little mini walkthrough events.
Jenny, I think you need to switch over to a different window.
Did I not do it?
Now we're still looking at your case.
You're looking at my case. I'm so sorry, folks. Let's try this. Lewis, is that better?
There you go. Wonderful.
Okay, so let's go back. So there's the building that we are looking to obtain. Again, 24,000 square feet, where we're going to be able to have different sized offices for folks. Of course, it will house Rowan County United Way. We will have work rooms, training rooms. This is our board room that we'll share with folks. If you rent from us, you automatically have access to all of the shared spaces. Moving into the second floor, we are going to have a heartbeat center with a full kitchen so that nonprofits will have access to event space and will be able to bring their caterer in and have a kitchen there, or even serve as a ghost kitchen for our downtown friends. And then, of course, again, more conference rooms and more offices. These are not the true blueprints. These are just concept renderings that we are using as we continue to develop our actual architectural renderings for this space. And so let's stop here, but I do want to highlight something that was really probably profound for me as we move through this process. Can you all see a different screen now where it's a room full of people? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, George. This right here is a picture of the non-fundraising awareness event. So for our United Way, and maybe for a lot of you all, our events that we hold, we're asking for money. And that's what we do. You know, we're going to put money into an event, spend $25,000, and hopefully our return will make that money back and hopefully generate additional revenue. This event here was probably the most pivotal event for our United Way as we work through Major Gifts Ramp Up. We filled a room with 200 plus individuals of the who's in Rowan County. We pulled them from Leadership Giving. We had 100% of our Tocqueville members in this room. And we also use the data that you all will have access to with the net assets of $2 million with that data that they will pull in for you. So this room was absolutely full. We did not make one ask. We served them a lunch. It was during lunchtime. And our testimonial for this, of course, we had many different speakers, such as our mayor came and she read a letter from Elizabeth Dole, who is from Salisbury, and just Elizabeth is saying, hey, please give to your United Way. We support this organization. We support all of Rowan County. And this is our testimonial. Our United Way made a $175,000 investment into a hydroponics program. We invested in that program because it is 100% sustainable. That program in itself is sustaining pretty much 95% of this agency's payroll at this point, which is absolutely remarkable. This gentleman is the man behind the hydroponics program. This is beautiful family. He brought them all up on stage. And I'm telling you, you get a little boy in a bow tie on the stage and it's going to melt hearts. But as this gentleman is talking about his story and coming over to America to gain his citizenship and what it's been like for him, he wrapped it up with saying, and the microgreens and the salad that you all have been eating for lunch came from our hydroponics program. And that was just sort of this big aha moment for everybody, because it was like they could not just hear it, they could taste it, they could feel it. And that was true impact for us. And that opened the door for so many conversations with major donors. And most of them just came to us and said, wow, I had no clue that you guys were working in this space and making this high level of impact. And that all really is because we brought Major Gifts Ramp Up to this community.
Jenny, thank you so much. That was wonderful. I appreciate your testimony. I'm going to turn it over to Debbie Bogle next.
All right. Thank you, Lewis. And thank you, Jenny and George. Those were great stories, great case for support, and amazing programs. I'm going to talk a little bit about a non-United Way organization that I worked with here in my hometown after we had brought Major Gifts in-person Major Gifts 2-day series to our community. We had an organization that did not have one donor. All of their funding was from the state. And but they were wanting to start a new program. They were seeing a huge need in our community. And United Way folks, you'll appreciate this. It was based around Alice families, and a lot of the work that we're also moving towards as well throughout the United Way network. And they didn't know anybody. They were kind of self-contained. They did not go to Rotary. They did not go to any community type meetings. So nobody even knew they existed except those of their clients that needed them. And they worked with folks that had disabilities. They were the point of entry in our community. So really, if you didn't have that need, you just didn't know they were there. And but they really felt this passion. They're getting all these phone calls with people they can't help for some other things. And they really wanted to bring this new program to the community. So where do you start when you don't have a donor, you don't have a fundraising team, and you've never had to do this before? And so we worked with them, and it was pretty amazing, the end results. But what happened is we worked with them. Some of the things that came out of this was a stronger board of directors for them. They were able to see the need and create more diversity on their board, going through, trying to figure out who they are, what we need in this community, and how we're going to build this. It really opened their eyes to what they were doing and weren't doing. And so that was just to build that strong base for them. And that was just kind of a side effect of implementing Major Gifts Ramp Up that they weren't even expecting. So they were very hesitant because, hey, we don't know anybody. This probably won't work for us because we don't know how to raise money, those types of things. And, they were kind of stubborn because a lot along the way, there was a lot of, this won't work for us. This won't, we can't do this. But what they found out was they can do it, and they did do it. And they are in their third year of full funding for this program that they created. Most of their donors just keep automatically just sending them money. They were really quite surprised by the turnout on what that looked like and how that helped them. It really changed their whole organization and their outlook. They actually cover like 20 counties in Illinois, and they implemented this in just a couple of their counties. Right now, they're working on bringing some more of their counties into this so that they're able to create the same program in those counties where there's a huge need for help with Alice families. They had, now they have, their biggest fans are some of our biggest donors in our community that had no idea they even existed. And so this was just a real eye opener, not only for our community and for them, but for me as well, to see the magnitude that this program can really bring. It's just because of the ease of it, but also it just makes so much sense, which is why I got involved with Major Gifts Ramp Up and went to my first 2-day conference. I felt like finally I'm hearing exactly what I think in my head, and all these other things weren't working. This is aligning with exactly what I think we need in our community. A couple of years ago, I had a meeting with 9 foundations, the leaders of 9 foundations in our community. And I asked them, why do you give? Like, how do you make a decision on where you give? And it really surprised me what they said. 2 things, all of them agreed on. I knew the person that asked me. So that was simply the only reason they gave, is because they knew the person that asked for the money, or it seemed like a good thing. And what we can really, so no outcomes, they didn't care about that. They didn't care about it really anything at that moment. Just, I knew who asked and it seemed like a good thing. And so working with these foundations, we were able to really show them what giving looks like and things to look for, and really kind of determine our next moves as far as creating those relationships, because right there they said it. That is what matters to them, is those relationships. And that's what we've been able to do with United Ways and organizations that we work with, is help them figure that piece out. We all know it. It seems hard. It takes some work, but it is so easy to really implement that and make those connections. So that was those things were big learning points for us, just to build a stronger organization through this. It makes you look at what's happening in your organization, refine it, and then share that with the community in a way that they're going to want to invest. I also worked with a United Way, and for those of you that are saying, well, I don't know how to get started, I don't think this is going to work for me. This United Way, their budget is just a little over $250,000 a year. They're a tiny United Way. And we have that a lot. We hear that all the time on at United Way conferences is, well, that won't work for me. I'm just a tiny United Way. I've only got 2 people. I've only got 1 person, maybe even a part-time executive director. This United Way, their very first gift was $40,000. They had never had anything over $5,000 at one time from a donor. And their very first investment was $40,000. That's the power of creating a program that people can get behind. So that was a real win for them. And continuing to move forward, we will see more and more of that. And that's why we stand behind this program in our community and share it with as many people as we know, because if our organizations and our community are successful, we're all successful. Our community is successful. And we're seeing real positive change with the organizations that have implemented this and learned how to really be a major gifts fundraiser. And I'll leave it there. I'm not going to show you any more cases for support, but I just wanted to share how it's not just United Way. It's not just big organizations who have staff to be able to, fundraise. This is any type of organization, any size of organization that this works for. Like Lewis said, it doesn't matter where you're at. We've had communities that say, well, we're different. I don't know if this is going to work because we're different. We're all different. But you know what? We're all the same as well. Just encourage you to do a 2-day conference so you can learn in more detail what this is all about and what this looks like. This is just a quick overview of what George, myself, Jenny have experienced. But you would learn more and what that looks like in more detail during one of those conferences.